Shalom, everybody. Akiva Gersh here. So excited to be talking Aliyah with Shira Lankin Sheps. Shira is a writer, photographer, and clinically trained therapist. She is a creator and publisher of the Layers Project magazine, an online magazine that explores in-depth insights into the challenges and triumphs of the lives of Jewish women, and is passionate about creating spaces for stories that need to be told and changing the dialogue around stigmatized topics. Earning a BA in English Literature at Stern College of Yeshiva University and MSW from the Silberman School of Social Work at Hunter College, she made Aliyah in 2018 and lives in Jerusalem with her husband and children. Shira, thank you so much for your time. So fun to be talking to you today.
Thank you for having me. This is great to connect.
Great. So Aliyah, it's a huge topic. It's a huge deal. It's a huge jump in one's life. You did it just 2 years ago, Mazal Tov. You know, just like maybe some starting thoughts in this conversation about Aliyah, like, you know, what motivated you and your family to make Aliyah 2 years ago?
So I was lucky in that I was raised in a very uber Zionist family. My grandparents were Holocaust survivors. They both made it to New York after the war. And they actually themselves were planning on making Aliyah in the 70s. And then they had like a work opportunity and they ended up staying. But basically the narrative thread all the way through since I was born was that Israel is our home and that's where we're supposed to be. So my parents always talked about moving to Israel. You know, we moved to Israel, when we're moving to Israel. And then my youngest brother so there are 4 of us. I'm the oldest of 4. My youngest brother, straight out of yeshiva, was like, you know what? We've been talking about this for so long. I'm just gonna go. I'm just gonna stay. Like right out of Shalavim, he joined the army and he made Aliyah. And he was like, listen, I'm taking a gamble on all of you. We called him Nachshon. Like he was the Nachshon of our family. And he's like, I'm taking a gamble on you guys. And if I'm here, then you're going to come. And then about 2 years later, I think it was 2 years later, maybe a little bit more, my parents decided to make the jump. And my sister came with them as well. So the 3 of them made Aliyah. That was 3 years ago. And then the exact same weekend, that like July 3rd, July 4th weekend, the year afterwards, we made Aliyah. And then my middle brother and his wife, they came this September. And so now, Baruch Hashem, we're all here. Yeah.
That is amazing.
And since then, my brother and my sister, who were single, got married to Israelis.
Wow. They're like jumping in.
Oh yeah, we fully jumped in. And it was beautiful. Last year at my sister's wedding last summer. So we're like super Ashkenazi European Jews, and my brother-in-law is Mizrahi. And it was like the most unbelievable kibbutz galiyot moment, with like watching them under the chuppah and like just the whole process. Like this is what it's meant to be like, you know, like really like from kanfot haaretz, like we are coming together. Like I think between our 2 families, we like touched like every part that Jews could potentially come from. And it was beautiful. And so we came with Alev Shalem, and we were, I think for many, many years, I wanted to come so badly. It was like so like deeply ingrained in me. It was something that I always wanted. Like when my husband and I met, and I was like, I really want to live in Israel. And he was like, okay, I'd be open to that. And he was like, would you have children in America? And I was like, no. And he was like, all right, this chick is nuts. But in the end, we, you know, we thought about it a lot, and we've been watching history unfold. And we kind of just felt like this is where we were supposed to be. This is where the future was. I say that, you know, it's clear to me that the future of the Jewish people is here. And I said that I would rather leave than be left. And I knew that my kids, there was a really good chance that they would want to be here, you know, and I wanted to be here, and I was like living like almost like a fractured life. Like in my head, I was living in Israel, but in reality, I was living in New Jersey. Wow. And moving here, I just became so shalem and so whole that it freed up all this energy to like like self-actualize and do other things and focus on things that were important to me. And I haven't even for 1 second, not even for 1 second doubted it.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is amazing. First of all, we're going to get to that self-actualization. We're going to get back to that point in a moment. But I just have to say, I mean, that is so inspiring. I've heard so many stories about Aliyah. I'm a bit of an Aliyah nut.
No, you are.
Right? But I have to say, I mean, that what you just said is so incredible and inspiring and also unique, because usually, you know, when you hear about a family coming, say like, you know, parents have 4 kids, they're like, okay, like the kids will make Aliyah and then we'll join them either because they want to or because they feel like they have to now. But the fact that your parents made Aliyah in the middle, like
In the middle.
that is so unique. That I've never heard before.
Yeah. My parents they're perfect here. They're so happy here. And it's the craziest thing about it is that it was such a gamble. We all took such a gamble. And I really accredit to the way that we were raised, the values that were instilled in us, but also how close we are. Because like we like literally couldn't even tolerate the fact of being like that 4 or 5 year period where we were all separated in different places. It was so difficult.
Wow.
So difficult. And you know, coming back together like this September when we were all together, it was just, I can't really even describe it. My brother, so my youngest brother, the first one to make Aliyah, he said when he first made Aliyah, we were like, oh, Benji, what are you going to do to celebrate? He's like, I'm not celebrating until every single one of you is here. And every time one of us came, he said, we're not celebrating until we're all here. And when Josh and Jen came this fall, he was like, now we're going to have a party.
He must feel like king of the world. I mean,
it's tremendous. It's a tremendous bracha. And it's so crazy because the last brother that came, his in-laws are here. My sister, and then the 2 other ones married Israeli. So we have this like massive crew here, you know.
That's amazing. I want to touch on that for a second because, you know, I have a lot of friends who made Aliyah. Most of my friends are Olim. I imagine it's similar for you. And the thing with Olim, one of the challenges is leaving behind your family in America, right? And you're raising your kids without their grandparents, without their cousins, without that. They're obviously gaining so much, and we'll talk more about that. But like they are missing that. I feel the blessing in my family, and clearly you feel the blessing in your family. That my wife too is very similar to you. She's one of 4 kids. Grew up super, super Zionist. Kind of funny story, but my father-in-law, when he married my mother-in-law, his wife, he thought they were going to make Aliyah within like days because her parents and brother already made Aliyah. But they made Aliyah. It's a whole crazy story. It's during 1967. They were her parents, my mother-in-law's parents were only going to come for 2 years for like a little work sabbatical here in Israel. And then the 6-day war broke out. They're like, we're not leaving. And they stayed with her younger brother. She was in college at the time, so she wasn't going to make Aliyah then. But whatever, long story short, he thought they were going to make Aliyah like in a second, and they didn't. Raised 4 kids in America. And once 1, 2, 3, 4, everyone made Aliyah, they came. They're super excited. But the fact and the point that I wanted to make is that like our kids have cousins here. Like that's a very unique thing for Olim, right? And your family is and will be the same kind of situation.
So we still have my husband's family and my extended family, like my mother's extended family in the States and my father's extended family. So we left behind family. So we still, even though we do have the bracha of having like a whole family unit here, there are still so many people that we miss and that we think about and that we wish we could see on a regular basis.
All right. So you're kind of experiencing both sides.
Both. We have, I mean, my kids have cousins that they were super close with, and they lived in New Jersey. We lived in New Jersey, and it's, you know, we miss them every day. And my kids talk to them multiple times a week.
Wow, that's amazing. That's amazing. You know, talking about kids, right? So when people think about making Aliyah, there's so many things to think about. First of all, you know, it's driven by this passion and this feeling. So on some level, there's not much to think about because they know they want to make Aliyah. But just obviously, there's the logistics, there's the process of making Aliyah, how are we going to make it work? And kids, part of the puzzle, that's a whole nother kind of entity, right? And if I'm right, you made Aliyah with children, right? So if you can speak a little bit about that, how is that for you and your husband? How is it for your kids? You know, it's only 2 years ago, it's still probably somewhat fresh. You know, what's that been like for you making Aliyah with children?
the first thing that I'll say is in my marriage, I'm the idealist and my husband is the realist.
Okay.
I think that the blend is really super important because like I had the dream and then it became his dream, but he made it a reality.
Mm-hmm.
That's the first thing.
Right.
The thing that we had been discussing all these years, because we had been married 10 years by the time we made Aliyah. And, you know, we always joke that like, there's like, you make Aliyah right out of college or during college, you make Aliyah right when you get married, you make Aliyah 10 years in, and then you make Aliyah like, you know, 20 years out, and then when you retire. Like there's like different stages. I think that that's changing right now because of what's happening in the world. And I'm glad that it's changing, but I think we should just pin that for a second.
Mm-hmm.
We made a deal. My husband and I made a deal that all those years that we were talking about Aliyah, talking, I said, listen, before our daughter, who was born 2010, before she turns 9, we need to go. We need to go. Because we knew that that was kind for girls, like it gets harder. The later you get here, the harder it is for girls to acclimate. And boys, I think, have a little bit more leeway, a little bit more room, but because girls are very complicated from a social perspective, that was the deal. And so we made Aliyah when she was 8.5.
Right on the line.
We hit that limit. We did that. So I think that a lot of the adages that people have been saying over the years about like when you should come and when it would work, I think they need to go out the window, because I think that we need to be cognizant of what's happening in the world, and that's more important. So I have a lot to say about like stage and this and that, whatever, but I think that the truth is that like, if you want to come and you think that you can come and you think that you should come, just come. You know, in terms of kids, you know, what it's been like for them, something that's been massively important for us was that we moved to a neighborhood that had a lot of Anglos, a large Anglo population. I think there were, maybe when we got here, like 40, 50 Anglo families, not massive. We live in Jerusalem in Ramat Bet.
Okay.
And there's a beautiful community here where there's South Americans and Australians and British people and Americans. So it's not solely American, which is cool because you don't realize how like different culturally we all are, even though we all speak English. So it's been a real fun education, and I've loved every second of it. My kids had other children who were Olim. There were 3 other families that made Aliyah to our neighborhood at the same time. And we were all together kind of growing through this process together, and they were a tremendous support system for us, and we were for them. But the community was just so happy to have us here and really, truly welcomed us. You know, like those first few months where like the WhatsApp messages are like flying and you like really have no clue what's flying. And it's like, I just had like all these moms in the class being like, hey, I don't know if you know that we need like baking powder, baking sheets today, but I sent my kid with extra for you just in case, you know, like
that's awesome.
The embrace of community is so tremendously important. It made you feel like you really weren't ever alone. And so that was really huge. And also having other Anglo kids in the class for my kids to talk to, at least in the beginning. Right. Now we're at the point where all the Anglo kids get together and they're speaking in Hebrew.
Wow.
Which is fascinating because like the other day I was in the park and I was like listening and I was like, I turned to my friend and I was like, are they talking to each other in Hebrew? Why? Because that's what they do in school.
Exactly. It becomes their language of play and of friendship.
So when they're like one-on-one or they're like talking about something serious, they speak in English. But when they're like a whole crew of them together, they speak in Hebrew because it's like it evens the playing field,
right.
Which I think is super cool.
That's amazing.
You know?
It's amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, our experience is a little different just because our kids were born here, but their first language was English, you know, and they learned, you know, Hebrew by going to school. But kind of connected to what you're saying, one thing that was fascinating for us and is fascinating now is our oldest, who's 13. He's like best friends with his one of his cousins. And they grew up like together. They're like a couple months apart, you know, speaking English. That's like their normal language. That's their first language. And just like a couple years ago, they started speaking Hebrew together when they hang out. And that was like an interesting switch to see as well. right? So,
I think that, I gotta say this carefully. I think that there's tremendous positives. Like my kids, the moment that they landed here, my parenting style changed. I didn't like give up who I am, but I was forced to adjust in a way that my kids got to be more independent, more self-reliant, more confident, and it's been a tremendous, especially for their personality, it's been a tremendous blessing, tremendous. But I'm not going to say that it's not hard. It's very hard, and there are moments that are extremely hard. I'll tell you a story, and I think that it's important to share the difficult moments too, because it's realistic. I don't want people coming here and thinking it's just easy and everyone's going to take care of everything and it's going to be no problem. But I think that there's, just like life, there's like a nuanced experience. I'll tell you this story. My kid was tasked by her teacher to bring some sort of like dessert or food or something. Okay. So she came home and she said, Ima, I want to make a banana bread. I said, great, got a great banana bread recipe. Americans love banana bread. She makes this unbelievable, the best banana bread that's ever been made. She brings it to school and she cuts it into little pieces and she puts it on different plates and she hands it out to everybody in the class. And all the angles are like shoving the banana bread in their mouth, right? And like one Israeli kid tried it and she was like, what is this? And then she was like, ichse, right? And then she brought the plate back to my kid and then the rest of the class did the same.
Oh.
And so I picked her up from school and she's sitting there with this banana bread tin. And I'm like, oh my God. Okay, what's the situation? So I called up the teacher and I said, Mom, what's the situation here? What's banana? What is that? Like, we don't eat that. I'm like, okay, like what do you make? And she said, ulai ugiot im cornflakes v'chocolate. And I'm like, what on earth is that, right? So basically we have this scenario where there's a massive cultural difference.
Right.
Unless you have somebody holding your hand, you don't really know. So this is what happened. This is the amazing twist of the story. Over the first year, I don't even know, over the last few months, the Aliyah Yerushalayim had been in touch with us. The Olim crew there had really been in touch with us to see how we were doing, to see what they could do to improve the lives of Olim in Yerushalayim, which is like, this is the amazing thing. It's like every single Ola and Olet, like you're wanted here. They care about you. They want you to be okay. They want to know how they can make your life better. So we had this meeting with the Yoetzet of the school and the representatives of the Aliyah, whatever, and I told this story. And a few months later, there was an email that was sent out to every school in Yerushalayim that had Olim. With this story, but they changed it. My kid was like, they changed it. It was a boy. It was a birthday party. It was like a coffee cake or something. And they told this story and they asked for Israeli families to create like a buddy program, like Israeli families to buddy up with Olim to help them culturally navigate the school system. And so like this story just blew my mind because here we go, my poor kid had this horrible experience. But it meant something. Not only, it didn't just like stay there, it traveled all the way up into the Aliyah so that all Olim who come to Yerushalayim will now have a Israeli family to buddy with them to help them navigate the system. Like that's
amazing.
Every person here matters. You matter.
Amazing. First of all, that's an incredible story. So thank you for sharing that with us. But it's also a great bridge to the next question I want to ask you. And just like this idea of like, we matter. Do we matter? Sometimes people think like, I'm a Jew, landing in the Jewish state, like in the sea of Jews doing all these amazing things, like, do I matter? Can I make a difference? Do people see me in all those kinds of things? Because let's be honest, right? Also talking about the challenging sides of Aliyah, there is like the acclimating to life here. There's the language, there's the cultural differences, all that. We spend so much energy just trying to adapt. How much energy do we have left to pursue our career, and give time to all those other passions and loves we have in our lives. So, work is a big issue, obviously, as well, when it comes to Aliyah and people thinking about it, considering it. There's probably so many people out there who want to make Aliyah. They have that passion. They feel like so connected to this place every time they come to visit, but they're just, worried about work. So with you specifically, with work, you came here 2 years ago. Can you speak a little bit about just like what your work journey has been so far?
Yeah. So I run the Layers Project magazine.
If you can move a little bit closer to the mic so we can hear you better.
Yeah.
Perfect.
So I run the Layers Project magazine, which you mentioned before, which is a magazine that interviews Jewish women. We talk about, as I call, the challenges and triumphs of life. Basically, the point is to talk about stigmatized taboo topics for the purpose of destigmatizing, to make people feel less alone, to educate people on things that they never knew, and to really kind of embrace the human experience. That's what I do. It was very hard to leave my network in America. I came from New Jersey, New York, New Jersey, and I had a whole lifetime of network. I mean, I interview people, I write, like there's a lot of, most of my work is collaborative, and joyfully so. And so I took a big gamble to leave everybody that I knew. Luckily for me, over the, I think maybe year and a half, 2 years that a year and a half that I had been running Layers in the States, a lot of women from Israel had reached out to me. And so I made friends. I made friends online so that when I landed here, there was just a whole community of people that were waiting for me.
Amazing.
And were tremendously, tremendously helpful and lending me their networks so I could continue to do my work. And I find that Olim really support each other here to find work. There are really amazing, incredible Facebook groups and WhatsApp groups and of all kinds, of Olim, helping Olim navigate the system, navigating work, navigating money, navigating communities and real estate and schools and special needs. And there's kind of like an endless list of people who support each other. And so I think that it's a really important part of this discussion because it's very hard to do on your own. And today you don't need to. There are people waiting here for you, to support you, to give you advice. People have done it. My husband has like 75 spreadsheets that he's happy to share with anybody. What we brought, the lift, the this, the that, and I still get calls all the time, especially like Aliyah season. So like starting in April and coming really through September, I get a lot of calls during the weeks of people being like, what do you think about this? Can you give me advice about that? And I think that reach out to me, reach out to other people and get advice if this is something that you really want to do, because there are people here who are like truly, truly excited to help you.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's really important for people to know. It's not a burden, it's exciting.
Right. I mean, it seems that, you're really fortunate in that your work is very connected to your personal passions. And it's
Yes.
very much an extension of who you are. And earlier in the interview, you mentioned this idea of coming to Israel and like self-actualizing. Yeah. Can you maybe talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah. This is a little country. There's so much. It's also new. We're little and we're new. And really, truly, every person that comes here matters. And if you come here with an idea, you come here with a passion, there's a good chance actually that it's not being done yet. And, for me, being here just like freed up all this energy. I had all this, I put in so much emotional energy and physical energy and intellectual energy, like getting here, because of my own personal hurdles. But when I got here, now I was just free to live. And so, you go through the cycle of living here. It's Rosh, you land, and then you get your kids ready for school. And then it's Rosh Hashanah. And then you go to the supermarket, and it's Chag Sameach, and then it's Yom Kippur, and then it's Sukkot, and people are in the streets selling. It's like life has a different pace here. It has a different energy. It has a different flow. I think that all of a sudden the energy that you put into being a Jew adjusts, because then it becomes just like really natural, and like it just becomes like I don't know, it's synchronous with like who you are. Like this place is synchronous with who you are as a Jew. And so even when I like walk the land, I live on the edge of the forest here. And I live on the Israel Trail, literally. Like my house is attached to the Israel Trail. So I walk downstairs and there's like a dirt road, and I walk literally into the forest. So I do Nachyomi with my kids. Nice. And when we were doing Sefer Yehoshua, our spot was mentioned in like one of the nachlot, and the kids are like, "Hey, we live there," and I'm like, "Yeah, we live there." You know, and so all this, you just feel really like a part of the fabric of. This is how I feel. I feel like I'm a part of the fabric of like where I'm supposed to be. And I'm not saying that it's not hard. I will always be American. I will always be awkward, an awkward American. I'm clearly a very expressive person with a lot of words in my mouth. In Hebrew, my personality is totally different. There's a lot of like exclamations like, "Voila, it's okay, mamash b'simcha, oh mamash tov." Like there's a lot of that because I don't have so many other words, you know? Yeah. And that's hard. And I see how my kids are changing into Israelis. But my husband and I will always be American. We will always be an immigrant. And like the immigrant status, I remember watching my grandparents be immigrants and other families that I knew be immigrants. And it was always like, oh, you know, it must be so hard. And man, it is hard. Yeah. It's hard.
Yeah.
But just like every other immigrant family that I've known, I'm not talking about refugees, I'm talking about immigrants.
Right.
You've made this move to give your family a better life. And so it's worth it for me. I feel like even though I'm that awkward parent, and even though I really don't really like know what's flying, I would be a much better parent if I understood like what was going on in my kids' schools, you know? Like, but the same token, my kids are independent and they are adjusting well. I got a call from my daughter's teacher. She had been her teacher for the last 2 years. And I remember in November, December time of last year, so our first year, we had a parent-teacher conference and my kid got like an 80 on her math test, right? And she's like, oh, so it's really difficult that she's not doing so well in math. And I was like, hold up. I'm like looking at this paper, I'm like, you're telling me that my kid was listening to you in Hebrew and she got an 80 on her test? That's unbelievable. Like that's how did she manage that? Like how did she do that, right? And she was like, oh, it's so hard. Never, right? And over these 2 years, this teacher who never really taught Olim before watched my kid blossom. So she called me at the end of the year this year and she was like, I can't even tell you what it was like to watch her change and to learn Hebrew and to learn how to learn math and science in Hebrew and to make friends and to her person to be more assertive and to be independent. And I was like, this is it right here. Right. Nutshell. This process right here, you know? So it's hard. I'm not going to tell you it's not hard, but it's beautiful and it's precious. And I say this all the time in my writing, like literally, if you live here as a Jew, you are living realized prophecy. I took a class with Dr. Yael Ziegler last year at Matan, and we were learning Yeshayahu, and it was a whole section on Shivat Zion. Yeah. And I'm telling you, I was literally sitting in class every Wednesday, and I was like, I'm living this prophecy, baby. Like, you know, and when you look at the world and what's happening today, the world has gotten so much crazier even since I got here. Like I was like paranoid, like, it's not safe for Jews, it's blah, 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 we're moving to Israel, you know? But today it's like unequivocally the truth, you know? And so when you just look, I feel like we made the right choice for our family.
Amazing, amazing. If I can just share this, like in closing, I feel like one of the big themes I'm hearing from your incredible words that you're sharing connected to Aliyah is this balance that you and your husband hold but just this balance in general of like idealism and realism. There's obviously, we're making Aliyah because we feel something here, but we also want to and need to make sure it's all going to be, you know, worked out and make sense and be successful. So maybe to end on the emotional piece, I just to share a story, because I know you're a collector of stories. So I'll just share with you, you know, just what you said about Laura Ben David and Dee kind of being right there when she made Aliyah. I'll just share a quick snippet from when I made Aliyah in 2004, just a couple of years after Laura. You know, we're on the plane and making Aliyah with like, you know, 200 people, nefesh b'nefesh, and, you know, we land and we go down the stairs, you know, and I didn't really understand that there was going to be this whole ceremony welcoming us. Right? I knew my wife's family who already lived here, were going to be greeting us, but I was not ready for this massive amount of people like welcoming all of us together. So we're coming down the stairs and I see this massive group, and I brought my acoustic guitar in the plane with me because I didn't want it to get messed up in the plane below. So I'm just like, I have to take out my guitar right now, you know. So I take out my guitar, I give my case to my wife, and I put my guitar, and I just started like strumming, coming down the stairs, and I didn't even consciously think of like what song to play, but of course, like from like the depths of my soul, Am Yisrael Chai just comes out, and I'm singing. And when I get down to the tarmac, I didn't even realize that there were these two rows of soldiers welcoming us, and we're walking between them. And here I'm like playing my guitar, singing Am Yisrael Chai. Between two rows of soldiers, they start singing with me. And my first moments are some of the most, like, the only word I can use is euphoric. It was literally a euphoric moment of landing in Israel in that kind of way. And like you said, like, there are people waiting for us. They want us to be here. They're so happy that we're here. And of course, to the best of their ability, they're going to help us make it work.
It's so funny because when we made Aliyah, we took a group flight. So not like one of those massive flights. And it was actually a really wonderful experience, because a lot of people are like, oh no, the big flights are better. Like, I had a great experience with the group flight, and when we landed, it's a much more low key. And if that's like what your family needs, that's good. And our family needed something a little bit more low key. But my family was waiting for us, and the song that we sang was Vishavu Banim, you know. And like you walk out, and like they're just people just like chilling in the airport, and there's like random people, but they even want you here. They like even random Israelis, you know, like that whole first week I like was doing so many stupid things. Like I would bump into somebody, or I would give someone the wrong change or whatever, and then like some Israeli would yell at me, and I'd be like, slicha, ani mamash ola chadasha, and they'd be like, mazal tov, yesh koach, you know, like they want you here. Like even they think you're nuts, but they want you here, you know. Like Shavu Banim L'Gvulam, it's like it's euphoric, like that feeling of like you get off the plane and you're here. But then there's also, it's not just about that moment when you get off the plane, it's about every moment after. Because every moment after, Vishavu Banim, Am Yisrael Chai, that's the soundtrack to your life, baby. Like that's you know, like it's so cliche, but the truth is, like when I'm sitting at the playground and I'm watching my kids play on the monkey bars or play here, play there, or whatever, and I'm looking out onto Yerushalayim, like we live on a mountain, like you look out onto Yerushalayim and like you can't even, and you hear the sounds, there's Russian kids playing over here and French kids playing over here and British kids over here, and you're literally, I'm living prophecy. And that is a gift. It's a gift.
Mamash. Shira, I want to thank you so much for your time, for your insight, for your words, for your sharing. It means so much to all of us, really. And just wish you continued success with all the incredible work that you're doing here in Israel for the Jewish world.
You with your work to bring Am Yisrael back to the Holy Land.
God willing. Together. Thanks so much, Shira.
All right, take care.
All the best. Be well.